Has anybody played Sonic Generations? Yeah, the one where they make a joke out of reminding us that Sonic used to not speak, but then forget that Tails didn't either. I picked up Generations recently because I was jonesing for some more 3D Sonic action, and have completely used up Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 at this point. I tried Shadow the Hedgehog briefly, but that game was so face-meltingly awful it made me want to puke. I powered through the neutral ending so I could say I beat the game, and then just put it down. I'll probably make a video about it later on because hopefully, if enough people speak up, the world will never be subjected to such a horrible monstrosity again. But for right now, I'm talking about Generations. Sonic Generations is kind of fun. The final boss is really annoying and requires random luck to beat. But once I finished the fight, as I was watching the ending cutscene, I thought, yeah, I don't regret the time or money I spent on this game. I know this all sounds pretty negative so far, but here's the thing. I haven't played any new Sonic games since Adventure 2, and the reviews on every game I've missed have been pretty terrible. Some people say Colors is fun, and I've heard okay reviews of Generations, but aside from that, just about everyone seems to agree that Sonic Team really lost their way after 2001. So when I bought Generations, I was looking for just a little bit of what I enjoyed about the older titles, but my expectations were not high. Well, the game pretty much met my not-so-lofty expectations. Sonic moves fast, the music is funky, and the world is colorful. It's really all you can ask for these days. It's clear that just about every Sonic game since the jump to 3D, or at least the ones that I've played, were unfinished to some extent. I mean, as much as I love both of them, the Sonic Adventure games are riddled with bugs and glitches and just kind of poorly made. I mean, does Sega even have a QA department? Or is Sonic Team just held in such high regard within the company that it's assumed everything they make will be perfect and therefore gets to skip testing? Some people today have declared for their own sake Sonic to be dead, but I don't see it that way. Yeah, he hasn't had a single game worthy of more than a 5 out of 10 score in over a decade, but every one of those games that I've played contains some really good ideas that if they'd taken the time to refine and polish, would have made the games fantastic. I'm not holding out hope for Sega because I think they've all lost their minds. But I am holding out some hope for Sonic specifically, because although he'll almost definitely never get another good game, it would be so painfully easy for him to. Listen, Sega, dig the adventure games code out of the basement, dust them off, then go back in and actually finish those games. Fix the bugs, the collision problems, and for Christ's sake, get rid of the Big the Cat missions. Or at least make them optional or something. Okay, I know that's never going to happen because Sonic Team seem to be in the habit of discarding everything about a game once it's released and building the next one from the floor up. But if you must do that, guys, do me a favor. Put down the energy drinks for a minute. Maybe smoke a bowl or drink some aromatic herbal tea. Just relax. Don't rush to get the game out the door before it's even finished. Just chill back and let the good ideas grow into great ideas, and the bad ideas rot and fall away. Additionally, before you release this one, put it through a few rounds of testing, okay? And when the testers tell you about a bug, how about instead of lighting their shirts on fire, you listen to them, and go back into the game's code and fix the problem. There is still a ton of people out there who love Sonic. They're mostly the poor saps who grew up with Sega consoles instead of Nintendo, and saps though they may be, they deserve better games than what you've been putting out. And the entire world deserves better games than freaking Shadow the freaking Hedgehog. Okay? Okay. Now, rant over with, let's talk about Generations specifically. The visuals are fantastic, and the soundtrack is good, but it's just songs from older games, so they're not scoring any points for it. Besides, there are remixes of those familiar tracks that are definitely less good. So the music gets an F for effort, but a C+ for being songs that were already enjoyable. For anyone out there who doesn't know, Sonic Generations is another anniversary title for the Blue Blur, and thankfully less tragic than the previous anniversary he had. The plot, though it hardly matters, involves Eggman teaming up with some dimension-hopping monster called the Time Eater, and causes some temporal distortions that find Sonic and Tails, as they have looked since Adventure 1, meeting up with Sonic and Tails from the classic titles on the Genesis. As both classic and modern Sonic, you run through a recreation of one stage from each game in the series so far. I almost wish they didn't have a plot, because I have a feeling a lot of the budget went into making the incredibly pointless cutscenes, and it could have gone into adding more levels instead. The game is pretty much over in, I don't know, 4 hours? I think that's about how long it took me, if not slightly less. The final boss sucks if you don't know what to do, and you won't because the game doesn't tell you. Generations is pretty bad at telling you stuff, but then again I did opt out of hints at the start when I was given the option, so maybe it's my own fault. Forgive me, Sonic Team, for not wanting to have Umo Chow buzzing around my head the whole bloody time, telling me things that are painfully obvious. Well, even still, when I googled up how to deal with the time eater, I found that quite a few other people had problems similar to my own, and one person even commented that they think the boss was likely never play-tested. How funny of you to mention that, random forum user. I was thinking that same thing about the entire game. Here's the thing with the final boss. You're supersonic, naturally, which means you have to keep collecting rings in order to stay alive. You start with 50 and they're constantly ticking down, but when rings do appear, they fly by so quickly it's nearly impossible to get more than maybe 3 of them, and that's only if you have really good reflexes. Of course, if you're boosting, and you need to be boosting the entire time, you probably won't hit any of them. Well, it turns out that you can apparently draw rings in with the initiation of Sonic's boost. I had to find that out online. So the only way to survive is basically just mash the X button, that's Xbox X, not PlayStation X, repeatedly the whole time. Unfortunately, even if you are doing this, sometimes rings just stop coming for a while. Like, long enough that you just die. The game seemingly decides, yeah, I don't feel like you want this enough, and just ring starves you to death. It's stupid, and it's poor design, but frankly, I can't get too steamed up about it, because I beat it after not a whole ton of tries. I've heard of it taking other people a really long time, so I'll just consider myself lucky in this case. Alright, final boss aside, the rest of the game is okay. I want viewers to keep in mind that I bought this game recently, and used, so I only paid $20 for it. Frankly, I don't think it's really worth that much, maybe 15, but if I had paid 50 or 60, I'd probably be pretty angry right now. As it is, I can't get too fired up over any game that only cost me $20 and maybe 5 hours of my time. It's cute, and it's fun, and I actually like it just enough that I've started going back and completing some of the side challenges just to spend a little more time in its world. Side challenges? Yeah, let's talk structure now. As I already mentioned, you play one stage from each previous Sonic game, well, the main ones anyway, thankfully nothing from 3D Blast, resulting in 9 stages, and just like the classic titles, each stage has more than one act. There are 2 primary acts you have to finish to move on. One for Pudgy Sonic, and one for Mouthy Sonic. And then after you get through those, you have the option of playing alternate versions of those stages with some different gimmicks added on. You actually have to do at least one of these challenge stages, as they call them, in order to get the key that opens up the next boss fight. And some of the stages also contain a mini-boss fight that you have to beat in order to get all the Chaos Emeralds, which are used to open up the ultimate boss fight against the Time Eater. Alright, structure established. How's the actual play? In my opinion, kinda bad. Not Shadow the Hedgehog bad, but it's still bad. Sonic moves crazy fast. I know he's famous for his speed, but in the Genesis games they only made him feel fast, while he actually moved pretty slowly, even relative to Mario. Plus, in the classic days, and even in Adventures 1 and 2, Sonic had to accelerate before he reached top speed. In Generations, pretty much just tilt the joystick and he's already there. This might have worked better if the stages were more spread out, but they're pretty small for the most part and tightly packed with detail. Collectibles and alternative pathways fly past, forever lost unless you start the level over, which I'm not gonna do. I like being able to see everything in 1, maybe 2 runs through. Playing a stage 30 times over just to see a little extra content sounds really tedious to me. So I'll say that I recommend Sonic Generations only if you really like Sonic, and you can find a copy for less than $20. It's not a bad experience, but it's not great either, and it's super short. It's fun while it lasts, but it doesn't last. With that said, I'm going to continue on with my nitpicks now. I don't like the voice actor they got to play Sonic. He does a pretty good job, I just don't think his voice embodies Sonic as well as the guy they had for the adventure titles. The guy in Generations' voice is just a little too deep, I think. Sonic's voice being higher pitched, I think, gives him a more cartoonish sound. Does that make sense? Like, the deeper Sonic's voice gets, the more he sounds like a human man, and he isn't. He's a spiky blue rat with one giant eyeball and bright red sneakers. Also, where's the spin dash for modern Sonic? Apparently they got rid of it in Unleashed in favor of this ridiculous boost move, but what the hell for? Especially in this game, Sonic is already too fast to control. Why do we need a button to make him move faster? Modern Sonic in Generations literally can't roll at all. What's up with that? I mean, what does everybody know about Sonic? He's blue, he runs fast, and he curls up into a little spiky ball of death. I mean, did the devs forget about this classic line? Rolling around. Rolling. Christ. Well, if this is how he controlled in Unleashed, then fine, but I don't think very many people liked that game anyway. Even classic Sonic doesn't actually play like he did on the Genesis. What gives, Sega? You remake old Sonic in all his two-dimensional glory, and you still thought you could improve upon things by changing them? Well, it's not an improvement, it's just annoying. Let me close out by saying that I don't hate Sonic Generations. I think it's okay, and like I said, for 20 bucks, I can't really get too upset. Do I recommend this game? Well, only if you either can get it for less than a Jackson note, or you're a massive fan of the Hedgehog. Or both, I suppose. I don't think Generations is a bad game. I have my complaints about the controls, but honestly they don't ruin the experience. In the end, the nail in the game's coffin for me is the very lacking amount of content. Sonic Generations does not have enough in it to have ever warranted a $60 price tag for a new copy, and I feel sorry for anyone who bought it as such.